On Wednesday, October 14th, CoinDesk is throwing an Invest Ethereum Economy virtual event, which I'm really excited that CoinDesk is getting into the Ethereum space more. Vitalik Buterin is going to talk there, as well as Heath from the CFTC. And I am also giving a talk as well on the bull case of Ether. So here I am right down here. DeFi Dad is also talking. Rune Christensen is also talking. Some really all-stars who are giving some really fantastic talks. So I've seen the schedule. I've seen the list of talks, and I'm really excited about it. They've done a really good job picking out the right topics. There's a link in the show notes where you can register with the code Bankless to get 25% off of your ticket. So get that ticket and then watch me talk about how awesome Ether the asset is. This episode of Bankless is brought to you by YEARN. YEARN is a yield farming money robot to do the yield farming in DeFi so you don't have to. YEARN has various products like Vaults or Earn, where in Vaults you can deposit your preferred DeFi token, and DeFi experts have written strategies for this token that you deposit to go and find yield automatically in DeFi. Earn is that same thing, but with stablecoins, where the Earn system will move your stablecoins around from protocol to seek yield from whatever DeFi protocol is offering the most amount of yield at that particular time. Check them out at yearn.finance. A fantastic tool to help you live a bankless life comes from Monolith. Monolith is a smart contract wallet on Ethereum, but it comes linked with a Visa crypto card that links right into the DAI in your smart contract wallet. So it's really spanning both worlds, using smart contract wallets on Ethereum and also a Visa card to purchase groceries or live your life. And so it's a great way to live a bankless life without having to, give up all the normal things that you would need to purchase to live that life. Check them out at monolith.xyz and get your Monolith Visa card sent to you today. ZAPPER is a tool I've been using to help me track my portfolio and all of my wallets across DeFi. You can plug in your addresses into the zapper.fi dashboard, and ZAPPER will give you a report as to all of the assets that you own and where you've placed them in DeFi. You can also invest right through the ZAPPER portal. So if you just don't want to go to all the different URLs for all of your favorite preferred DeFi protocols in order to stick your assets inside of them, you can just go to zapper.fi and click on where you want your assets to go. You can also add multiple wallets in case you use multiple wallets, and you can add them all into one seamless portfolio view by adding multiple wallets in ZAPPER. Check them out at zapper.fi. Unstoppable domains is where we get human readable blockchain domain names that are also completely censorship resistant. One of the really important features about unstoppable domains is that you can set up a website that has a domain that any nation state cannot take down. Really important for being a self-sovereign individual in this world. Additionally, what's also insanely cool about unstoppable domains is that Bitcoiners or any other blockchain can use unstoppable domains to make their Bitcoin address human readable, right? So no longer is this just technology built on Ethereum. Now unstoppable domains brings this to all other blockchains. So you can tell your Bitcoiner friend to send you money to davidhoffman.eth or yournamehere.crypto. Check them out at unstoppabledomains.com. All right, Bankless Nation, we are here with André Anjos, who is actually more commonly known as RAC, who is a Grammy Award-winning music producer, music artist, who I'm a big fan of. I've been listening to since even before I found out that he's an Ethereum DeFi bro. So that's just exciting. André, welcome to the Meet the Nation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Oh, yeah. Third time.
I had to. No, I'm stoked to be here, and I'll proudly wear the badge of Ethereum DeFi bro. Dare I say Chad? I don't know, but I don't know if I'll go there. But
we're welcome to it. We're welcome to it. So, what was your entrance into the world of DeFi? Like, how did it capture your attention in the first place?
So I actually maybe just to give it a little more context, I got into Ethereum like late, and we can kind of dive into this deeper, but I got into Ethereum late 2016, early 2017. And that was sort of like, I definitely rode that first wave. I was like very interested in it, especially for its applications in music. But then after the bear market and all of that, that's actually when I discovered, I'd been following Maker for a while because it's been I think they've been building it since 2015 or something like that. And I was really fascinated with this concept of synthetic assets and all of that. And so I had been following it, and it finally came out, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to open up a CDP, going to do all of that stuff. And then Uniswap came out. I was like, this is so cool. You know, I had read that first blog by Vitalik, and I was like, this is such a cool idea, because I actually really hated order book like based dexes, like Ether Delta and all that. Like, it was such a it was a big pain, basically, and I just didn't think that model made any sense for something that was like relatively slow, you know, compared to like the centralized stuff. So I was like, Uniswap, it's amazing, such a brilliant concept, and I can be a liquidity provider, I can make fees, you know. I was like, this is cool. It's a way to sort of park your funds and just collect passive income to some degree. And this is before I really understood what impermanent loss meant, which is a little more permanent than
all of us did. Yeah,
a little more permanent than the name implies. But no. So I became like really interested in it, and Compound came out, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And you know, we're talking about like 2 to 3% APR or APY, whatever, and it was like, oh, like it's actually gaining value over time. You know, it's like, even though I probably wasn't even making up for the gas fees. But anyway, so I sort of stumbled into it early just because of my interest in Ethereum before, and it wasn't like, I don't come from like a financial background. I'm not you know, obviously a musician by trade, so it wasn't like something that I was like super knowledgeable about, but it was just like, oh, cool, like a way to sort of make a little extra income on this crypto that I'm holding anyway. It's like I wasn't going to sell, especially not at the bottom. So
right. So yeah, it sounds like that you were part of like the 2018, 2019 bear market gang, right? Like the people that stuck it out after like being inspired from 2017, but also you're a musician at the same time. So like in, you know, in real person world, you make music. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been making music pretty much my whole life. It's since I was like 15 years old. I got my sort of first recording program, and you know, that I had sort of taken piano lessons as a kid, so it was an important part of my life. Maybe I'll just briefly talk about this, but basically, like I'm half Portuguese, half American. So I grew up in Portugal, and I remember being really confused about the language, and that was actually kind of where I discovered music, because it felt like a sort of an outlet that wasn't language specifically, because it is a form of language communication, but it's not. It felt less judgy or something. Like I mean, this is all in hindsight, but at the time, like, it just made sense to me. So, you know, I was always very drawn to it early on, and then, you know, eventually going into, you know, since I was 15, I just started writing and writing and sort of just developing skills and just learning. This is pre-YouTube, no YouTube tutorials for me, you know, just kind of trial and error and figuring it out. And then about like 2015, 2016, I started to work a little bit more professionally. In 2015, I did a remix for Block Party, which was actually my first like official like remix, and that was before even RAC existed, and I had been in bands and like things like that. And so in 2007, I was in college in the US, and I started RAC, and then that was sort of like the beginning of the snowball, and it sort of, that was the first project that really worked for me. And I just worked with like you know, my first client technically was remixing the Shins, so it was like you know, just a great introduction, you know, Sub Pop Records in Seattle. Like it was sort of my first entry into the real music industry, and from there it's really never stopped. And I've just been doing remixes for this entire period. I got into original work that actually ended up sort of taking over my life too. So the remixing is still something I do, but the original work is really where most of my focus is these days.
And you won a Grammy.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that was a lot of background, but basically that was sort of just, you know, I guess if I can convey any point, is music is sort of just an inherent part of who I am. It's a way that I communicate with the world, and it's something that is as easy as a form, you know, a language to me. So it's just something I do a lot and spend all day thinking about and eating and breathing. So yeah, and so in 2017, I think after almost 10 years of doing remixes professionally, I got nominated for the second time and eventually won for my remix for Bob Moses. So that was obviously a big moment for me. My manager actually, after I won, he turned to me and said, "It's like, well, that's one for the obituary," and it's like,
Wow.
it's pretty more. But I mean, that's his sense of humor, by the way.
Sure,
So it's
sure,
like,
yeah, right.
but it's also like, he's right.
Yeah.
It's gonna follow you everywhere, forever. No matter what else I do in my life, it'll always sort of be Grammy Award, whatever. It'll be
Mhm.
on the poster. It'll be everywhere. So it was kind of a significant thing, and I mean, definitely changed my life. There's no other way to look at it, and like I feel very grateful for it, but then again, my approach to all of this stuff is like, okay, I got there, now what?
Right, 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 right.
And I just keep making music and continue doing what I do, and I guess if I have to plug anything, I just put out a new album, so go check that out.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, I actually did listen to that. It was
nice.
fantastic.
Thank you.
That's actually funny. That's actually you won the Grammy in 2017, which I think you were also paying attention to Ethereum at that
Hmm.
time. So that was probably a busy year for you.
Yeah.
Both paths of your life. Maybe you really didn't consider Ethereum part of your life back then, but I think you do now.
Oh yeah.
I think where this conversation is going and why I wanted to bring you on here to meet the nation was that you seem to be on the frontier of experimenting and pushing the fold with using Ethereum as a tool to assist your music, right? And mainly to kind of disintermediate or also connect more directly with your fans, right?
Hmm.
And so I definitely want to talk about some of the things that you've been learning about and things you've been experimenting with, plus your very recent announcement with the RAC token.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's first talk about like perhaps why artists might be frustrated these days with like being an artist, right? And also, getting an income from this industry that, it's probably decently saturated, but not only is it decently saturated with artists, it's also decently saturated with middlemen. So why
Yeah.
might an artist be frustrated nowadays?
Yeah, so I should preface this like this happens a lot when you start to talk about the problems of the music industry, where it's like, well, where to begin? Because that's really where we're at. Like there's at every point there's problems. At every step of the way, there's somebody taking too much. Like I think on average, I don't think a lot of people realize this. On average, the artist makes 12% of income. And to me, that's insane
So
because
$100 of value gets generated, and then the artist is pocketed 12.
12,
But
yes.
to some credit, whoever is doing that pocketing, they're generating some of that value too, right?
Oh,
It just
100%.
kind of seems like maybe the artist who's like at the base of everything should get a little more than 12.
Yeah. I don't think anybody can really make the argument they're not adding any value. Of course, they're adding
Hmm.
value. I mean, they certainly play an important role in a lot of this. I do think, and this is my viewpoint. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm an artist, but I think that they're taking too much, and they have no real accountability. So, I guess like, when when I say that it's like it's a industry wide problem, it's something that dates back to the 50s. Like this is like we've made a lot of strides. It's improved, but at every step of the way, there's 3 or 4 middlemen that are taking a large portion of the profits. And the thing is, like, even when you're negotiating contracts, for example, like when you say 50%, you're talking about 50% of net after like
Hmm.
this and this person already took their cut. So like the value that you're generating is already watered down by the time it even gets to your contract. So it's just like it's a cycle that keeps getting perpetuated, and it's almost like nobody involved is really, I mean, directly responsible for it,
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
infrastructure, but it's sort of we're responsible for perpetuating it, for continuing this cycle. So I think that's kind of where we're at, where it's at this impasse where nobody does anything because it's like, well, that's how things are done.
Right. So,
And
so if I were to ask you, like, all right, well, who's doing it? Who's taking the cut? Like, you wouldn't really be able to give me a straight answer because it's probably circumstantial, based on artists, based on contracts. But overall, if there was a theme of like kind of who takes like the lion's share out of the music industry, which is the middleman that kind of takes the lion's share, or the few of them?
yeah, so there's a couple of them. The main one, I think, in I do want to add a disclaimer to this after, but basically like the labels I think are a big one, and there's all kinds of labels. So there's like the major labels, which they will often take 80% of income, so it's pretty substantial.
Yeah,
But then there's like
number.
indie labels that it's a 50-50 net revenue split, which is a very different model, which to me feels a little more equitable. I think there's room for improvement there, but so there's a spectrum, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't want to paint all labels as evil or whatever. I think there are labels, including labels that I work with that I'm very happy with, and I think that they do add value. But there are certainly players that extract too much value. I think so. I think labels are one of them. Distribution is sort of the first step. So let me maybe walk through the life cycle of a song.
Sure, please.
So a song gets uploaded to Spotify. Spotify collects, let's say, $15 a month for a premium user or something like that. Each play generates I think 0.0, I don't know, whatever it is. Like we count it in millions of plays. Right? Yeah. Like basically 1 million plays generates about $4,500 pre-distribution. So then that distribution that money, let's say you get 1 million plays. Okay, that money goes to a distributor. That I don't really know why we have distributors, to be honest. It's the digital age, but whatever. They take anywhere from 5 to 15%. So right off the top, that's that. And then from there, that goes to the label, and then that's where your deal comes in. So if you have a 50-50 net split, if it's recouped, as in if all the bills have been paid, that's 50-50. So out of that 50%, then you have to pay, like if you have co-writers or anything like that, or if you have somebody else that participated in the master side. I feel like I can definitely get in the weeds here, but like I hope that I'm just conveying that, like, basically at every step of the way, there's somebody that's like, well, that's my cut. Oh, that's my cut. Here's my cut. And then by the end of it, you end up with about 12% at the end of it, and the artist is always the last person to be paid. So.
Yeah. That's to me the big line, right? Like the artist gets last rather than first. And I think like we could come up with a similar model where like there are all the different middlemen who are adding value, but if they just got paid after the artist rather than first, I think that ordering is really important, right? And it also speaks to like the priority of like who should get paid. Who should get paid, because obviously the artist should be paid first, because everyone else who is taking a cut is getting supported by this artist, right? Like you're the one making the music originally, you're the one producing the actual product being sold, right? So it kind of makes sense that you should be number one.
You'd think. I mean, that's my viewpoint. Again, I admit my bias, but I agree. I think like so whether that's first or at least somewhere up higher in the cycle, I think makes sense. I think what I'd also, because I think about this a lot, is like how to solve this really. I think it's just a change in dynamic. So if the artist has more power in this dynamic, then I feel like there's room for the free market to sort of flourish, where we have perhaps like if we separate the funding side from the creative side. So labels may end up being more like creative services where they add value through finding the right artists to do album art, or they help with marketing, which is important. It's super important for an album. Maybe they become more like marketing services, and then I feel like there's room for like maybe they can compete on that level. Like let me start with an album, and then let me pick a label that seems best suited for me to put that out in the world, or to help sort of strategize on how to market it properly. That to me feels fair. Like if just finding the right fit for it, as opposed to you being at the bottom and just hoping that the person at the top does their job properly. Because they're not that incentivized to make your share bigger. I mean, to some degree they are, but not really, because they already take. They can make somewhat calculated bets where it's like, well, if we put X amount of money into this, then we can most likely get a 15% return. But a 50% return on their money may mean a loss for me.
Right.
So it's not it's not quite there. You know what I mean?
And so, yeah, the incentives aren't perfectly aligned yet.
Right.
And so you've been experimenting in the DeFi world with different ways to kind of get around this. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this started with your tape on Zora. Tell us about that story.
Yeah. So, again, just for a little bit of context, like, so I had released the album in 2017. One of my second album, I released it through Ethereum, not exclusively, but where people could buy it, like literally from a smart contract and deposit X amount of Ethereum. You get an IPFS link, like, you know, that's all it was. Like,
that's awesome. That's great.
So I thought that was cool, a cool experiment at the time. Through that, I worked with this group called Udro Music, which was part of Consensus, and one of the guys, Jack Spallone, he hit me up, I think late last year in 2019. It was like, hey, I know you've been working on an album. Let me introduce you to the Zora guys. They're ex Coinbase guys. They're doing some really cool stuff with you know, they didn't really exist as a full company at this point. So I had seen what they had done with Saint Fame. So it was sort of like taking that model but applying it to, you know, a limited edition good of some sort.
Right.
And that's where we came up with this idea of doing a cassette tape, because I'd actually never done one, and I always wanted to, because I think it's kind of a cool novelty type of thing. And
right, retro, yeah.
Yeah, and the album is actually very much about my childhood, so it was like thematically it aligns, and there's a lot of stuff there that made sense. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do a limited edition tape. And but okay, so the cool thing about Zora is that they the whole idea is like they open up a market for it first, and people can buy into that market and trade it. And then at a later date, you can redeem it. So the idea is that through opening up a market, you have real price discovery for this limited edition good. Because, okay, we started, and this is all on Uniswap, by the way, which I think is cool.
Right.
So you know, we had a, you know, I think we started the price at $20, which we knew it would probably go up from there, obviously, but
it's not going down, right?
Right. Right.
How many? And before we talk about the price, how many tokens were there?
So there were 100.
100
so
tokens,
limited to 100. And we really specifically only made 100 tapes. There's no like extra buffer or whatever. Like, this truly was like 100 tapes. In fact, I got 3, just for the record. So, and I redeemed mine.
Right.
So
yeah. And you bought them on Uniswap, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, we actually we gave 5
free
to ourselves, which was actually, so the Zora team has 1, I think my manager has 1, and I have 3, just because I wanted to have a couple copies for myself.
Sure.
So so the first 5 were actually freebies, but we sort of we decided that we were just going to redeem them. You know, we don't want to participate in the market. That would be unfair. Like, I think we just want to be, you know, we just want to, you know, allow people to buy and trade it, whatever. So, okay, so we did that, launched it. I didn't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that kind of reaction. And
what kind of reaction? What happened when you launched it?
People went a little bit crazy with it. So it went from, I think in the first day or two, went from $20 to 950.
Yeah. Wow. Wow,
and
that is crazy.
That
was before DeFi yield farming degeneracy, right? Like, what month was this?
This was May.
This was May. Okay, so
maybe there's a little bit of it, but not really with this type of thing, you know.
Right, and like nowadays, people are both really hot on NFTs and also really hot on like selling and distributing tokens through Uniswap, right?
Right.
Compound issuance came out like not too long after that, and that used Uniswap and that had crazy price discovery, and then other people are also using Uniswap and getting crazy price. And so, like, to me, when I saw this like, oh, something is coming. Because this totally worked, and so many people are going to try and just copy that model, and that seems to be exactly what happened.
Yeah. And there's, and I'm really happy about that. I want this ecosystem to flourish, because I think, okay, so like there's a couple things I learned from this. Like, first of all, the thing that I love to say is that music has value. Like, and this kind of proves it, right? Like, yes, it's a niche thing, it's a cassette, whatever, but like there is sort of an intangible value that as humans, I think we're bad at pricing ourselves as
Yeah.
individuals,
Yeah,
but through
especially
markets.
artists,
Yeah,
especially when you're in a game of just like, corporate finance people who have calculators and,
right,
algorithms, and you're like, how much is my work worth? I actually don't know. And they
right,
have so much more data behind them to be confident in their answer, and then therefore like create negotiation skills, right?
right,
Like
exactly.
artists
And
are infamous for not being able to like price their work very well.
right, yeah, and we're there's sort of like it's sort of like a meme of like the
Hang on, I think I just lost your sound. Or is that on my end?
for you.
There we go.
It's
Now I
still
hear you.
showing.
Now I
Okay,
hear
yeah,
you.
I know.
Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Okay.
I was just saying like there's this meme of the poor artist,
Hmm.
but think about like just objectively like the value that an artist, a musician, gives to
Hmm.
your life. You know, like think about the amount of hours that you spend listening to music and getting
Hmm.
enjoyment out of it. Like,
Hmm.
I think that's valuable, right? Like,
How much how much your mood is elevated, or like,
right.
how much time that is more valuable versus listening to a quiet room. Totally.
Right, exactly. So like, I think everybody understands that there's value there, but
Hmm.
we're not good at like sort of determining that. So
Hmm.
this whole thing with Zora was really just like, okay, let's open it up to a market. Let's let price discovery, like the most capitalist thing
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
Let's let people, because people can buy
See what
and sell
happens,
it.
right?
So
So how much do you think were your fans who wanted to buy a tape, and how much do you think were DeFi degens that were speculating?
I'm gonna. This is a complete guess, but I'm gonna
Hmm.
say about 20% fans,
Okay.
80% degens.
Now, do you think any of those 80% degens became fans as a result?
Uh, Probably, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. Like if anything, it was great marketing. I mean,
I think I had a tweet that I put out around this time where it was like kind of a signal saying like, yo, there's this guy RAC, produces great music, who is learning and experimenting with like monetization strategies on Ethereum to benefit his fans, and then like he's also like enabling like vehicles for DeFi degens who then also might become his fans, right? And then his
right,
previous fans might also become DeFi degens, right?
right,
Like
right, right, right.
we could really just like share communities
It's
here.
a cycle here.
Absolutely.
And like, yeah, it's. I mean, if we're just talking about it from a pure marketing perspective, I mean, think about it. Like, cassette tape sells for 950. It's actually at 2,000 today, by the way. Like, this is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
and
does that have anything to do with your most recent announcement?
yeah, we can get to
Okay.
that in a second, but it actually hit 4,800 the other day, which is like crazy. Like this is it's insane.
Wow.
But anyway, so like think about that. Like just from a marketing perspective, that story writes itself. It's like it's crazy. Let's call it what it is. Like it's
Hmm.
kind of we're having our own little bubble, and that's
Absolutely.
fine. But
Hmm.
like and there's some extra incentives that we can talk about with the token, whatever. But basically, like it's just market cycles. I mean, it's what happens with other tokens, and it's sort of happening with like a physical good, and I find that to be absolutely fascinating. Like I think when the price dipped down, like after the first sale, it dipped down to like 200 or so, 250, and it stayed there
So
for a long
low.
time.
So low.
in today in context, yeah.
Hmm.
So but I guess like at that time I was like, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, That's
Hmm.
sort of where things settled,
Hmm.
where if people wanted, maybe there's still a little bit of a speculative element there, but
Hmm.
like maybe those people kind of cleared out, and now it's just fans that just wanted the cassette, and that's it.
Hmm.
And then it kind of settled there, and that's what it is. Like that's sort of maybe where the value of this item lies. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that the market is, and
Right.
like so for example, like if I came out and from the if I just posted, I was like, I'm selling cassette tape for $250, people were like, you are insane. Like,
Right.
what are
Like,
you
no,
doing?
thank you.
But the fact that it was determined by a market and not by me,
Hmm.
I was like,
Hmm. Right.
it is what it is.
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know what to tell you. I didn't participate in it, so
Deal with it.
yeah.
So what did you learn from all of that experience of issuing this token and the tape cassette?
Well, uh, so I think that like maybe there's one kind of little technical thing that we learned with Zora is that Uniswap is amazing, obviously, but Uniswap doesn't do very well with like small token amounts. So like the 100 like the 100 limit is actually not really conducive, because then towards the end it like slopes to
Right.
infinity,
Yeah,
which
sure.
is not great. So actually Zora ended up moving to their own sort of custom pools, which are a little bit flatter, and
Mm.
they can kind of control the beginning and end price. So
Right,
it's
right, right,
it's
right.
less like it's like tape goes to 100K, you know, it's like
It
it's
doesn't
sort of
really count, right? Yeah, there's no
right.
volume up there, right? It's like a flash in the pan. Yeah, we I think we've been seeing some other teams kind of experiment with that as well. Like the perp team did an issuance with Balancer,
Yeah,
where they actually made the price tick downwards over time, but then when somebody would buy one, it would go back up. Right.
right,
And
right,
so
right.
like if there's like, and what's great about that is at the end, like all the tokens are distributed, right? And
Hmm.
so the tokens all get out into the hands of the people rather than it being like stuck inside a Uniswap. So I think there's
Yeah,
a lot of experimentation with people that want to issue tokens like this, where they don't want them to be, they don't want it to be a currency, right? So there isn't going to be
right.
a million units, but they still want to be able to distribute a low number of units, pretty widely. And
Yeah.
and I think we're going to see some experimentation with how to do that the best way.
Yeah, the perp token is a great model. I really appreciated it, and I actually haven't looked at it in a while, so I don't know where it landed. But I remember seeing that slope, and like people just like buy it, and then like it's like human psychology. It's like, oh no, this is it. This is the floor. I need to get in here, you know. But then it goes a little bit lower, then it goes back.
Right.
You know,
Hmm.
it's fun. It's just, you know, markets in action, I guess. But I love that we're sort of able to do all of this, you know, and that it's relatively user friendly, at least
Absolutely.
comparatively to where it was.
Comparatively, yeah, getting better
Yeah.
every day. So let's talk about your most recent blog post, to your most recent announcement, which is the RAC token itself. So this seems to be a natural evolution with your experiment with Zora, where you found out that tokens allow for fans and others to express things in a more direct way. I feel like that's kind of like the through line here.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
released the RAC token. Tell us about that.
Yeah. No, I think that's sort of a fair way to explain it. Maybe I'll. So this is all happening in a certain context. So like in the midst of COVID, I started live streaming, and I started doing consistent streams, and this community started to develop around them. Like people that would show up to every stream, they started to get to know each other. Then they signed up for my Patreon, and then suddenly we're in a Discord. And so it's like this mix of like Twitch, Patreon, Discord. This community really kind of just came out of nowhere, and it maybe started around my music, perhaps, or maybe that was like sort of the catalyst that brought people together. Um, and But this it kind of is kind of taken on a life of its own, and I found that to be really fascinating. And I think what I realized is like it's pretty fragmented across platforms. Like maybe Discord right now is the primary hub, perhaps, you know. But it's sort of a permission thing. It's like, you know, you have to have to be a Patreon supporter or Twitch sub or hold the RAC token to get in. You know, there's like a couple ways to do it, but it's sort of like the water cooler, I guess, of the
Right.
community.
Right.
And people play games, they post cat photos, they you know, like photography, design, like all kinds of stuff. Like it's cool, like its own little thing. And I just saw this emerging sort of like self-organizing organism, whatever, if you want to think about it that way, where I was like, this is like super interesting. And in the midst of all this, okay, we're seeing like all these DeFi projects and okay, like one thing, like Yam certainly had its problems, but like this idea of like, okay, let's self-organize, let's get a group together, and we're all sort of a part of it, and then we sort of decide what the future of it is.
Right.
I think
Yep.
that was a very interesting kind of moment where it's like, oh, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like
It's
we
a
don't even
blank
know,
slate. It's a
like
blank
we don't
slate.
even know what this is going to be, but
Hmm.
like we're all incentivized to work together because we
Hmm.
all are a part of it. So taking a lot of these ideas, I mean, obviously you know, I was pretty deep into yield farming and all that, and it was just like, you know, basically playing with incentives. Really, that's what we're talking about,
Right.
and some of them better than others. You know, like there's not much stickiness to being an LP, you know, because people will just once the APY goes out, you know, they're not going to
Right.
stick around. So
Right.
it's like, but playing with these incentives and you know, I'm trying to think of like other examples, but you know, basically anything where you had some, at least, maybe even just a feeling of ownership over the protocol itself.
Hmm.
I think that has some power. All this stuff. It's like, this is fascinating. Like, why don't we, like, how do we bridge that into my world? You know,
Right.
and again, I wasn't thinking about this from a financial standpoint. Like, it wasn't like, it's not an ICO, obviously. It's like,
Right.
you know, like it's not that kind of a thing. It was like, how do we, like, basically, like, how do we get this in the hands of people that are sort of part of this community,
Hmm.
uh, and give them sort of a sense of ownership over this,
Hmm.
and give them a say in how it develops.
Right.
You know, so that was sort of the beginning of it, and the more we got into it, we just like, okay, it's funny because we actually thought of the retroactive thing before Uniswap, and we weren't
Nice.
as heavy on it. But once we saw how Uniswap handled it and how well it was received, it's like, oh, we should actually really double down on this because there's something to this.
Right.
Because I think what we saw is a lot of people that got your Uni tokens or whatever. I mean, a lot of people sold them, but a lot of people didn't.
Right.
Because
A lot of people didn't, because it
yeah.
could have dumped super hard
Oh yeah,
because of how much it was distributed, and it didn't.
yeah. To me, that was like, oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, so I mean, these are I don't want to make a direct comparison because these are obviously different things, you know,
Right.
like one's a
The pattern's
decentralized
there, though.
exchange, but this idea of incentivizing people that are already a part of it, giving them a stake in it.
Hmm.
I don't want to put too much emphasis on the financial side of it because like a token is representative of ownership, and that does have a financial value attached to
Right.
it, but it's more about this kind of collective cohesion,
Right.
and
Uh-huh.
and that's what I find really fascinating. And you know, with RAC, that was sort of like, okay, how do we, and look, I'm not going to say that I have this all figured out by any means, and I hope I was sort of pretty open about
Hmm.
that, even in the blog post. Is like,
Hmm.
let me just get in the hands of people.
Right.
Let's start there. Let's
And
see
so
what people do with it. You know?
I've been pretty critical of personal
Yeah,
tokens
yeah, yeah. I know.
in the
Yeah, yeah.
past, which we could get into. And like the personal token that I was particularly critical of was Alex Masmidge's token, where
Yeah.
like, and I think why I was critical of it is because it seemed to me that his token came before the work,
Hmm.
right? And so he was like tokenizing himself for the sake of tokenizing himself. But he does frequently lay down this line where he talks about like the Alex token is a way for him to like receive feedback from like his stakeholders, right? And
Hmm.
so, and I think this works really, really well with somebody like you, that you have an artist with a fan base, and different fans are trying to like probably get in your ear and be like, hey, Andre, like, will you produce this with this in
Right.
this way? Like, will you do this thing? And like, maybe you don't know how to listen to these people because like I'm sure you can, you know, get a billion Twitter DMs every single hour. But when you get a token involved and some fan that is ready to show their commitment to your music, right? Who is willing to put money on the line by purchasing the token,
Hmm.
it's a way to get signal from the people who care the most, right? Who are most incentivized for you to, I don't know, do something with your music or do something with like, I don't know, another thing with Zora, right? That
Right.
it's both for the good of the token, but also leverages your skills as a music producer, right? Is this kind of what you were thinking about?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, it's a powerful signaling tool to some extent. I think what I love about this, it's actually many things. It can be many different things, and that is definitely one of them. So, for example, like if I put out a song with like Chris Brown,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure people are going to dump that token. You know what I mean? Like, like I would hope so. I don't
Right.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to do that, by the way. But you know what I'm saying?
It's not on the menu.
Like that Chris Brown R. Kelly collab. You know, it's like, you know.
Oh gosh.
So this is obviously an extreme example, but I'm just saying like it can be a powerful signaling tool at scale. I mean, obviously we're just starting, but like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a lot that kind of goes into it, and it can carry various utilities. So like, I mean, for example, like the most basic utility it has is like, well, it gets you into the Discord. It's like, okay, that's somewhat interesting,
Sure.
but like,
Right.
you know, not
Mm-hmm.
like, not worthy of a whole, you know, like,
Well, yeah, but you also said that you're not trying to make this token go moon, right?
right.
Like
Yeah, yeah, no,
you're
no.
first and foremost trying to get the right people in the right places with this token, right?
Right. And like that's sort of why I'm giving it retroactively. It's why I'm for example, like I gave it to anybody that bought merch. I'm giving it to anybody that like bought like an MP3 on Bandcamp since like 2009. Of course, a lot of these people are like, wait, what is this? Like they probably don't even know what it is. But you know, it's there if they want it. They can claim it. So it
So if you generate a community of RAC token holders, say, 100, 150, 200, 1,000 people, and they all start, brainstorming things that could be done with this token, obviously these individuals are going to be incentivized to figure out how to make this token number go up, right? Like number go up.
I think that's somewhat inevitable, right?
Right.
But,
yeah. It's kind of, well, that's where incentives are. Like this is
Right.
an experiment incentives, and if you own the token, you're incentivized for number to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So would you be receptive to community efforts to try and get the token number to go up?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I think the point is like I'm going to be receptive to whatever people want to do with this, wherever people want this to go. Like, okay, like stepping away from the financial side of it, like that is definitely of course, like I'm not going to deny that. But like for example, like if maybe the incentive is to grant tokens to somebody to build a tool that the community wants, whether that's like a website or like some, I mean, I don't know what that is, but like, if they want a specific, maybe they want a Discord bot to do something, maybe they can just vote to, give X amount of tokens to somebody that, to build it, for example, or something like that. That brings them value that's not always necessarily financial. You know what I mean? So there's ways to gain value that aren't just number go up, right? But I think it's all sort of part of it, and I think that's what I like about it is like how broad it is. I mean, let's check back in a year, see how it goes. But like I think ideally that's I think the intent is there, and I think we're just starting to sort of at this point we're just getting it in the hands of people. Like we haven't even done like this. There's not a whole lot you can do with it yet, right?
Right. Yeah. So about that, like, what's going on in the back of your mind? You got any like secret plans that you could share with what you think might happen with the token in the future?
Yeah. So again, the only thing at first right now is Discord access, and the other. So I'm going to do a whole bunch more drops on Zora, so like custom merch, like things like that, limited edition goods. But as an RAC holder, basically you get first dibs. So
that's great.
I think that kind of solves that problem for me, where it was like with tape, a lot of my fans didn't get into it because by the time they even saw the website, it was already 250 bucks, whatever. It was already going crazy. So this allows my most active fans to get first access and hopefully a more fair price or a better price before the speculators really get in. So that's one thing. Also, I want to use it as incentives for other things. So, like for example, like Audius, which is come out at some point. But basically, if like I can incentivize kind of like liquidity mining, but for listening. So you get X amount of RAC tokens for listening to my music on Audius, or for example, like actually on Wednesday, well, I guess I'm telling you now, I'm going to launch my first like collaborative NFT with a friend of mine, and so I'm going to do like a small, like 1,000 tokens or something like that to the winner of that NFT or the top bidder. So it's like there's all these like little incentives that I can kind of do. And for the other thing I want to do is so Twitch, it's pretty common to have sort of ad space for your stream, and I mean as you know with podcasts, whatever. But we're basically going to use tokenize it. So like we have to figure out like the pricing, whatever. But basically like X amount of tokens gets you anywhere from like a shout out to like full blown like ad space, and so that's something I kind of want to experiment with as well. And I think I guess the other way that I'm thinking about this is like this is sort of like a layer on top of all these other platforms. So okay, so I've been doing this for a long time. Like I've built I've built followings on MySpace, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Tumblr, literally everywhere. Like I've sort of participated in all of this stuff. And at one point in time, those platforms go away, and I'm left with, not much, basically.
Right.
I'm left with like basically begging people to come over to the new platform du jour or whatever.
Right.
And that gets kind of old. So I like this idea of creating this layer on top of all these other platforms where it's like, not only do you get sort of like an ownership in it, but it's more permanent,
Persistent, right?
It's adaptable enough. It's just a token. So it's adaptable enough that it can change to, like, if Discord goes away, we can switch to a different platform, and I mean, it's still rebuilt, but there's still there's still a
stickiness,
sense of,
right?
Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. It's, I guess, like, maybe I'm just kind of thinking about this now that we're talking about it, but it is sort of more of a glue or stickiness to that community that isn't really possible with any other technology. So these are sort of some of the ideas that are circling around my head now. Obviously, this is a very long-term project, and I just want to continue to add value to it, and just keep building it for the people that are involved in it. And we're already seeing, like, the people that are in it are, like, really stoked about it and want to have a lot of suggestions and ideas too. So yeah, that's kind of where my head's at.
We've been seeing tokens across these yield farms, and even before that, as like the coordination tool, like the reason and purpose for why the community exists, right? And like even to the point where we saw like the meme token, where like the meme token was just created just as a meme. But then there was this thing to rally behind, and all of a sudden people started contributing different reasons or different incentives for why somebody might be wanting to be a meme owner, right? Like it allowed you to do things that like people without the meme token couldn't do. And that seems to be like what you're doing with the RAC token, and I think if we could bring on like a Bitcoin maximalist onto this podcast and be like, why do you need a token? Like, you can do this without the token. And like, you're just making this own currency, and it's like you're getting perks on like the merch, and you're getting access to Discord. You're just making your own money.
It sounds like it adds friction, right?
Right. Yeah. And like, so what's the difference between your token and like the Chuck E. Cheese token? Well, to me, I actually kind of think that the RAC token comparison to the Chuck E. Cheese token is actually really, really good, because like you're making the RAC like Chuck E. Cheese. Like, do you like my music? Do you like what I do? Like, come to my playhouse. You get like discounts on merch. You get early access to tickets. Like, you get all these fun little activites. Like, to me, I think it's totally viable.
Like, nobody is forcing you to buy this. Like, in fact, I'm actually discouraging that, because like I would almost rather people sort of participate in some way and earn it, and like that just feels a little bit better to me, and like, add value to the community and like earn it that way. Like that to me feels a little more holistic way, in my specific scenario. But to your point about the Chuck E. Cheese thing, like if you really think about it, I mean, that is, talking about multiple utilities, I think that is one of them, right? It's like airline miles, like they're redeemable for something. So like, I mean, it feels weird to say that for an artist, like, but to some extent that is a part of it. And I think that's cool. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah,
like what am I taking away? What's the downside here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it gets people more engaged in my music, or if it allows people to form a community, and like, I think that's sort of a trend that we're seeing in general with COVID. It's like where people are moving away from these mass social networks to smaller social networks. And I think those are becoming more powerful. The whole new creator economy, Patreon, OnlyFans to some degree. I know it's a bit of a taboo subject, but
it came out of COVID.
Like subject, or Substack, and like different platforms like that are sort of emerging out of this. These smaller, more niche communities are starting to develop, and people are getting more out of that than they are from these mass. This idea that we all need to fit under one umbrella, I think, is sort of falling apart. So I see this fitting into this new wave, and I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think it's, to some extent, it's taking the power back and being like, hey, audience, my fans, whatever, people in this community, let's build this together. Let's build it for us. Let's do something cool for us and that caters to what we care about and not try to fit into some bigger mold, you know?
Absolutely. That's what I love to hear. So Andre, if somebody's been a part of the Bankless Nation, but they haven't heard of you until this video, where should they go to listen to your music or find out more about what you do?
Okay, so there's many places. I would say like I'm on pretty much every platform. Username RAC, so that's probably the easiest way to find me. But yeah, I feel like a lot of crypto people are generally on Twitter, so I'm just at RAC. Feel free to ask me questions, whatever. I'm actually in the Bankless Discord, so
Yes, you are.
actually I should change my name to actually have RAC on there so you know who I am.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'll do that. But by the time the video's out, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. And for what it's worth, my favorite song is Cheap Sunglasses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
That's the one that I remember listening to all throughout college. Yeah. So yeah, guys, go check them out on Spotify or wherever you listen to music. It's a very chill to listen to. I like to do it with work because it's not blaring in my face. It's not in your face type music. So go check out Andre and say hi to him in the Bankless Discord. Andre, thanks for coming on to Meet the Nation.
No, thanks for having me. Stoked to be here.